Good morning, everyone. I hope this little video finds you well and happy and at peace, and looking forward to maybe learning a little bit more about yoga and Kriya. So, as a reminder, we are working through an amazing book called A Systematic Course in the Ancient Tantric Techniques of Yoga and Kriya by Swami Satyananda Saraswati. Before we begin, I wanted to remind you that as we continue through this lesson, you should still be continuing to do the practices that we've already learned. I failed to mention that before, but we are. You have a practice program that I included in the previous blogs, and you got to choose one, whether it's 50 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes. It's a program that you've kind of managed to fit into your life, and you should continue it. And as we move on throughout the book, we'll drop out some practices, we'll add some practices, things like that. But until you hear from me and I provide new asanas or new meditation or new pranayama for you to practice, keep doing what you've been doing. Don't stop and wait, just keep going. So what I mean by that is that if you have been participating, then you're practicing yogic breathing, where you inhale fully into the body, taking advantage of the space of the belly, the ribs, and the upper lobes of your lungs. And you're exhaling fully, emptying out from the top down. That's your pranayama practice. Maybe you're also including the ankle crank and the bouncing of the knee and the rotating of the hips so that you can practice pre-meditative exercises so that you can eventually sit in meditation for a while. And then we added, for this lesson number 2, we added cleanses, some common sense cleanses like cleaning the nose with jala neti, or the teeth and the gums, cupping the eyes, things like that. So please continue adding pieces that you can and take out pieces that maybe you don't need anymore, but continue practicing. Speaking of practice, so today we are discussing now the rules and preparations of your asana practice. Excuse me. And so these are guidelines that need to be observed as you practice. And they're pretty simple and, again, kind of common sense. Number 1, create a space. Create a yoga space for yourself if you're able to. And try to make sure that it's clean and tidy, well ventilated and not cold or too noisy. Of course, we don't always have that option. Maybe we live in a home with many people or many children, and it's difficult to find a clean and tidy space. And so we're asked to practice equanimity and gratitude for what we do have. But if you're able to create just a little space for yourself, try. For example, it does make a difference because, for example, I used to practice in my living room. And I don't know if you know this, but I practice the things that I'm reading about before I record these messages. So the reason you haven't heard from me for a while is because I've been creating my yoga space and following the rules and preparations for my asana practice so that I can speak to you about it from my own experiences. So again, back to it, I created a space. I used to practice in the living room, but I found that it was a little dark for me, and it didn't feel very special, and I wasn't doing it every day. I maybe just got on my mat every other day or something. But now, because of this book and the directions, I created a new space, and I found that I was drawn to this room, which is my bedroom, and I was drawn to this window, which has more light than the other window. This window in that room, my living room, only gets light early in the morning, way earlier than I want to rise. And here, it's here all day, so it's kind of nice. And I also, so I have my yoga mat nearby. I have a couple of yoga blocks, and I have plants and some oils, just little things. And as a result, I've been going to my yoga mat every day. Even if it's just for 10-15 minutes, it's there, so I just go there. And it really makes a difference, which brings us to number 2. Swami Satyananda Saraswati recommends that you try to practice in the same place every day to build up an atmosphere of peace. That's good. He also recommends that you take a wash or a bath and go to the toilet before you practice, if possible, and to wait for at least 3 hours after you eat before doing asanas. And then, if possible, to do jala neti before commencing with your practice. So the best time to practice is before breakfast. In fact, you'll find that it's a really lovely time. It has a more peaceful energy to it early in the morning. But But it's okay to practice later in the afternoon if it doesn't work for you, because if, for example, it's easier to do asana in the afternoon, and sometimes in the evening before bed it helps you to relax and get sleepy. So any time is fine, but if possible, practice in the morning after you've showered. Try to do jala neti so that you can clear the nose passageways so that you can breathe more easily, things like that. Here's a very important number 3 part. The duration of practice should be regulated according to your available time, though the longer the better. Don't set your aims too high in the beginning. Only do as much practice as you can easily manage every day without fail. 15 minutes practice every day is better than 1 hour's practice on one day, none for 3 days, and then again 1 hour's practice. So don't set yourself unrealistic program goals. Be realistic, choose the duration of your program, and once you have it, stick to it. For myself lately, I've been practicing Surya Namaskara A from the Ashtanga Yoga sequence, which I'll include here for you. Every day, 5 rounds at least. And then, if possible, I add the 5 rounds of Surya Namaskara B. I know that may not make sense to beginners, but it will someday, I promise. But I've included the videos below. Feel free to take a look and try them out. So every single day I try it, and I have now my space and it's working out. However, some days I'm finding that I'm feeling kind of physically or mentally tired. And so if the shower doesn't work beforehand and I'm still sleepy, I take a break. I do a little bit of yoga and then I pause and I relax for a while. So for example, like I mentioned a minute ago, I like to do Surya A and Surya B, followed of course by the practices that we've been doing, the pre-meditative asanas and the yogic breathing and the Nakasana boat pose and Shavasana. But sometimes I get through 5 rounds of Surya B and I'm just too tired. Maybe I just can't do it. And I don't judge myself. I just immediately go into my other asanas and or I go right into Shavasana. I follow my body, and that's what Swami Satyananda recommends, is that you follow your body's signals and you give it rest when it needs it, but that you still should practice every single day for 10 or 15 minutes. The next thing that he mentions is not to use excessive force to attain the final pose. Your muscles should be slowly encouraged to stretch over a period of time, not stretched and severely strained in one day. And that breathing should be through the nose, not through the mouth, and it should be as deep and rhythmical as possible. You should practice maybe on a yoga mat if you have it, or a rug, but of course if we don't, it's okay. Just practice wherever you can comfortably. Close your eyes as much as possible if you can. Practice with that. It helps to intensify your awareness. He mentions that the less physical effort that is required, the better. This is important. The aim is to perform asanas with as little tension or muscular effort as possible. Often I've seen yoga students come to my classes and they're shaking in asanas and they're forcing themselves to try to reach that final pose, the head to the knee or something like that. This isn't the aim of yoga. So don't force anything. Just take your time. Tell your body that you are practicing yoga and that eventually your muscles will relax and stretch and open, and they will. It just takes time. Also, don't hurry under any circumstances. If you lack time to complete your daily program, leave out a few asanas and do the others at a normal, slow, relaxed pace. So as I mentioned before, there are times when I'm kind of tired. Don't rush. I don't rush through it. I just cut out some pieces and continue with the ones I'm doing slowly and rhythmically. Eyes closed, deep breaths, get through it, and then rest. Which is mentioned later, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. After you finish your practice, you should always take your relaxation after your asana. The Nakasana, Shavasana, you should always relax for a moment before you go on about your day. Integrate your practice. Another point that I'd like to mention, there's a lot. I'm only mentioning a few that I think are the most important. Don't underestimate the importance of the movements to and from the final poses. They should be done slowly, smoothly, with control, and in synchronization with the breath. If you feel mentally or physically tired after the asana program, it's a sure sign that you've done something wrong. Perhaps your pushing yourself too hard or tensing the muscles too much. If you find this is happening, take out some asanas, do the others more slowly, maybe stop sooner, or contact me and let's walk through it together, and I'm happy to help you pick a program that leaves you feeling relaxed instead of drained. As you know, there are no specific limitations for any of the asanas in this book regarding age or sex, but there are some limitations regarding health issues. For example, if you have high blood pressure, there are some asanas you shouldn't do. If you're pregnant, there are some asanas that you shouldn't do. But I will mention them as I give you the descriptions of the asanas. I'll mention those contraindications. Don't practice asanas if you're ill. Your body needs to focus on making you healthy. So that is a day. If you're feeling sick, if you have a cold, if you have a flu, if you have coronavirus, don't practice asana. Let your body heal itself first. It needs to perform its duties unimpeded by your asana practice. There are some people, it's not mentioned in this book yet, it does come up later, whether or not you should practice on your period. If you're female and you have your period. Personally, when I'm menstruating, I follow my body. Sometimes I have a lot of energy and sometimes I don't. And when I don't practice. I take that day off. Just saying, you need to tap into what you're feeling that day. Proceed from the simpler asanas to the more difficult ones. This is kind of common sense. We're making our way through a huge textbook. We're going to start with the easiest things first and make our way to the end where we're doing awesome things. But for now, we do the simpler ones first. And remember that it's not a competition. If you perform your asanas in a group, don't compare yourself with others. We all have differently shaped bodies. And some people are able to stretch easier than others. This isn't indicative indicative of whether or not that person's better than you are. It's not that way. It's not important at all. There are a few other things. It talks about slow and controlled movements and coordination with breath as you move through the asanas. It talks a little bit about maintaining relaxed muscles in the asanas and to maintain the final static pose. So, and awareness. I want to talk about the last two, maintaining the final pose and awareness. When you are making your way into the asana, you have some moments where you're feeling it out and you're exploring it, and that's fine, but eventually you end up in the final pose. Instead of jumping out of it and moving on to the other one, take a moment to settle in that pose. Feel that asana and explore what it's offering to you. Some asanas intentionally massage certain organs or send blood to the brain. You won't experience the benefits of the asana if you just jump out of it once you got into it. So you want to stay there for a while and take maybe 5 deep breaths in it before you move on to the next one. And remember, the transition from one asana to the other is just as important as the asana itself. And awareness. We've already emphasized the importance of avoiding mental tension caused by forced concentration. So you should be aware, of course, of the mental patterns as you're going through the asana, but more importantly, focus more on relaxing the muscles while you're in the pose. Focus more on inhaling fully and exhaling fully in the asana, and the result will be calmness and a peace of mind. So, of course, as you're learning the asana, you want to maybe pay attention to, am I doing it correctly? Of course, over time, that won't be necessary. You will be doing it correctly, and your attention will then focus on relaxing the muscles, and then your attention won't be maybe more towards focusing on the breath. It's going to be a gradual process and journey. So maybe in the beginning, as a beginner, am I doing this okay? Is it good enough for now? Am I relaxed? Maybe I'm not in the final pose, the way your head's to your knee or something, but that's okay. I'm present and I'm breathing through it. That's all that matters, is being kind to yourself, letting the mind, as it maybe thoughts come up about like work or food, acknowledging that that's happening and letting it go and coming back to your practice. Practice the asana, the muscle relaxation, the breathing. That's it, everybody. That's everything. I hope that it helps you as you continue your asana practice through our Kriya Yoga exploration and journey. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Remember to maintain the practices that you've already been doing until I add more for you, which I will once I've been practicing a while myself and feel comfortable enough teaching them. For now, focus on the previous programs that you've been doing. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll talk soon. Take care, everybody.